Hello, thank you so much for clicking and joining me on here. So the topic today is implementation. So what do I mean by implementation and why start here? So what I generally find in terms of just human beings is that often we get a lot of information, we seek a lot of information. I think as species and species to be, we are naturally inclined to look for information and to seek knowledge, which is, I think, a wonderful, wonderful trait in our profession. But often we take that information and it sits in our brains, or it sits in a notebook, or it sits in on our laptops, and it goes nowhere. And we can't kick the ball forward. Like, that's a metaphor that I'm going to be using a lot. We can't move things forward. We can't kick that ball forward if you don't implement. So implementation is going to be the biggest game changer for you. So if you're somebody that already implements, awesome. That's fantastic. Keep doing it, because that is a real key or a superpower that you've got. If you're the type of person that's listening to this and going, I find implementation really tricky, that's why I've done this video for you, because it can be really tricky. And I actually remember the moment that I decided that implementation was going to be something that I was going to do and I was going to practice. And that's the key to implementation, is its practice. And I heard this wonderful saying on a podcast where they had speaker Rose Oates, and I'm not sure where she got it from, but it was practice makes permanent. So we're not after practice makes perfect, because there's no such thing as perfect, but practice makes permanent. And permanent is automaticity, and automaticity is being able to do things without having to put so much brain power and energy and effort into things. And that's where you actually want your practice to get to, where things are effortless, and effortless comes from practice and automaticity. So implementation. So for me, implementation happened when I went over. So I'm based in Perth in Western Australia, and I am a speech pathologist, and I had been a speech pathologist for many, many years at this point. And one of the things that I've worked with early intervention populations, and one of the things that I'm absolutely rubbish at is play. And I will be the first to admit it, play does not come naturally to me. And I don't mean like the cause effect play, but I mean that whole pretend play and those elongated play sequences I find really, really tricky. And so I flew over to Melbourne to do this PD, and clearly way before COVID, this was years ago. And it was run by the wonderful Karen Stagnetti, who ran this play PD. And she taught us how to play. And I was like, you know what? I think I can do this. But then there is that fear of, okay, there's a difference between I can do this, like in my head, and picking the kids, picking the sessions, and then actually doing it. And I thought to myself, well, I've flown all the way to Melbourne to do this PD. It is going to be absolutely pointless if I am too scared to implement, or I am too scared that parents are going to judge me. If I'm too scared to, just all the too scareds, basically. So I came back and actually, and I'll go through the points that I did in the actual PD that's going to help you. But I flew back and I implemented. And what I found was that, you know what, the more I did it, the more confident that I got, and the faster the kids moved, most importantly. And it really reinforced to me the importance of implementation. So how do you implement, right? So when you are attending a PD, you are watching a webinar or PD online, you are listening to a podcast, you are reading a journal article, you need to write an actions list. That's the first step. You need to write an actions list of what you're going to take away from this and what you're going to do, and ideally attach it to a client. So if it is clinical client-based work, attach it to a client, because that will make the decision-making process later on much easier for you. So what I do always, whenever I'm writing out my PD notes, listening to your presenter and you're writing your PD notes, the first page is always left for my action steps, so that I don't have to go rumbling through all my pages of notes. My action steps are on that first page, highlighted. So that's the first thing you need to do, is you need to have your action steps as you are taking in the information. The second thing is you need to put it on your calendar. If you don't put it in your calendar and you don't say, well, I'm going to do it with Joe and I see Joe on Wednesday and I'm going to do it in Wednesday's session, it isn't going to get done, because you are going to procrastinate over it. And it's not because you're lazy. It's because you're scared and you're not sure and you don't have the confidence, and all of those things are going to make you put it off and off and off. And the further away it gets, the harder it gets to actually implement. So you've got to put it in your calendar. And then the third step, step number 3, you just got to do it. It doesn't have to be done 100% well. It doesn't even have to be 90% well. I often think if I've got something, if I've got an idea in my head and it's formed to about 70%, I am going to implement. If it's formed to 80%, awesome, I'm definitely going to implement. I never wait for 80% and I never wait for 90, and I definitely don't wait for 100, because 100%, I think that barrier can move quite easily as well. So what today looks like, what 100% should look like in 2 weeks' time, when you know more and you've done more and you're a bit more scared, looks a little bit different again. So just do it. That's the thing. So implementation, that is what is going to get your skills forward. It's going to get your confidence forward. It is going to move you forward. So you need to implement. So what I'd love for you to do is, whatever you decide to implement, whatever it is, whether it is within your work life, if it is in your personal life, whatever it is that you decide to implement, can you hit me up on a DM or hit reply to the email, or get in touch with me and let me know what you've implemented, because I think it needs to be celebrated when you're starting to do these things for the first time. It's important that it's celebrated. So implement. So the 3 action steps again for implementation is your action list, ideally with a client or something very specific in mind, your action list. Second thing is, you've got to put it in your calendar. Third thing is, you just got to do it. And implementing, if you can practice to implement fast, not when you're ready, just implement within a month, within 2 months, within 5 months, within 12 months, you are going to be at such a different level. Let me know if this has helped you. Please let me know what you've implemented. Have a terrific day.